Zolane Carter, age 58. I grew up on a dusty street near a small church in Alabama. I moved north when I was 20 and worked 40 years at the post office. I paid my taxes. I saved my pennies. I raised my daughter alone after her father left when she was small. Now I collect a modest pension and a little social security. I live in a small house with a porch that creaks in the winter wind. I am proud, tired, and still stubborn enough to stand up when something is wrong. Before I begin, if you like stories that cut straight to the heart, please hit the subscribe button now, like the video, and turn on notifications so you will not miss the next chapters. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Let me know which state or city you are joining from so I can see who is with me. Your support keeps these stories alive. This story begins on Christmas Day. The kind of Christmas with too many lights and not enough warmth for some of us. The neighborhood had fresh snow the night before. The air looked like it had been washed clean. The houses along Maple Street glowed with colored bulbs and tall wreaths. People pulled their cars into decorated driveways and walked toward laughter and music and steaming plates. I had been on the road for an hour. My hands were still warm from the steering wheel when I parked in front of the house where my daughter lives with her husband and his family. I had driven 3 hours because I believed, foolishly maybe, that Christmas was still a day for family no matter how weathered our ties had become. My daughter Marceline had called 2 weeks ago with a voice that sounded thin, like a rope pulled tight. She said she would like company for the holiday. She had not said no when I offered to come. That was enough. Their house sits at the end of a curving lane. It is one of those new houses with a neat yard and a fireplace built into the family room like an altar. A wreath hangs on the door, full and fake and perfect. I walked up the path, the snow cracking under my boots, and placed my hand on the brass knob. The door was not locked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. People were gathered in the living room. I could see them before they saw me. A ring of bright faces lit by the fire and the TV. They were the family that had grown around my daughter. Her husband, his parents, 3 kids laughing and passing plates. They were clustered like a picture in a magazine, laughing at a joke someone had told, the kind of laughter that warms a room and leaves no space for a stranger to stand. No one looked toward the hallway where I had left my coat. I called her name quietly at first, then louder when no one answered. Marceline had been my whole life. Even when she was small and loud and stubborn, she was my whole life. I said her name one more time and then I heard a sound that stopped my chest. It was not the laughter. It was a soft, shivering sound from the kitchen doorway, like a small animal caught outside the cold. I turned, and there she was. Marceline sat on the cold tile floor near the pantry. She wore a thin robe that was 2 sizes too small and slippers that had seen better winters. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot and her skin looked washed out under the holiday lights. She hugged her knees to her chest and rocked a little back and forth. Her shoulders shook and not from laughter. For a moment I was not sure if I was awake. Then I slipped off my coat and wrapped it around her like a blanket. The fabric smelled like the road and old perfume. She did not push me away. Her hands were shaking so hard I thought they might break. I asked her what happened. She whispered, "Mom, I am cold." Around us, the family kept laughing. The television sent out the same cheerful music it always does. No one noticed the gap of silence that had opened up in the room. No one moved toward the kitchen. It was like watching a play where the actors forgot that there was an audience. I felt a heat rise in me that was not the fire. I remembered nights when I had nothing but a blanket and a can of soup. I remembered how I saved and stretched and told myself that one day there would be plenty for my girl. I had believed that my work and my worry would build a net for her to land on. How did she end up on the cold tile floor while other people laughed? I knelt down and pressed my forehead to hers like we used to do when she was small and feverish. Her breath came shallow and quick. I pulled her into my lap. She smelled faintly of lemon and cigarettes and something I could not name. Her teeth chattered against my chest and it made a sound that I will carry with me the rest of my life. Behind us the coffee table held mismatched cups and a bowl of buttery popcorn. A young boy tossed a paper plane across the room, and it skimmed the rug and fell where it would. Laughter rolled over the sound of plates clinking. No one asked if anyone was all right. No one offered a blanket. Marceline looked up at me, and in that look there was a fatigue older than her years. She tried to smile for me and failed. "Mom," she said, "I did not want to ruin everybody's day." She swallowed and pulled her robe tighter and shivered like a poor bird. Her lips were purple around the edges. I asked her what was wrong, and she tried to tell me. The words came slow and clumsy. "It was money," she said at first. Then she said something about a fight. Then she started to shake, and I thought she would slip right through my arms and onto the floor if I did not hold her tight. I asked the room for help in a voice that sounded small. Nobody answered. I stood up and faced them. I said their names one by one. I thought calling a name would wake a person. I told them to stop laughing. The words felt heavy and foreign in my mouth, the way you feel when you have to say the name of a dead thing. The man who is her husband turned his head like he had not heard me. He smiled without warmth and said, "Mom, are you okay?" and then turned back to the TV. His mother looked at me and then away. A cousin slid off the couch and offered me a plate like a white flag, but did not meet my eyes. Marcy pressed her face harder against my shoulder and whispered, "Please do not make them angry." Make them angry. The child in me wanted to pick up the nearest heavy thing and break it. The sensible part of me wanted to find a blanket and a cup of hot tea. My heart tried to choose between fury and care, but the two things braided together and became something I did not recognize. I wrapped my coat closer around my daughter, and I could feel the tremble of her bones through the thin fabric. I remembered that she had called 2 weeks ago asking for help but sounding small and embarrassed. She had said she did not want to be a bother. How long had she been shivering and pretending? How many nights had she sat in the dark while people ate her share? A child at the other end of the couch pointed at me and asked his mother, "Who is she?" The mother did not answer. The room hummed with voices, with jokes, with the sound of plates hitting forks. It was as if the house had decided that pain does not belong in a holiday photograph. I reached into my pocket. My hand shook. A small folded envelope sat there. I had brought a little cash and a Christmas card. I had planned to drape it on the table and watch their surprised faces. It felt ridiculous. My fingers closed around the envelope like a lifeline. I wanted to stand up and speak. I wanted to demand an explanation. I wanted to take my daughter, gather her like a child, and walk out into the snow and drive her to my house where the radiator makes a steady humming and the tea is always hot. I wanted to make them see what they were doing. I wanted to make them feel the cold that had settled into her marrow. Before I could do any of the things my blood told me to do, Marceline lifted her head and whispered something so soft I thought I had imagined it. "Mom," she said, "it is not just cold." She pressed her hand to her mouth and her eyes rolled toward the doorway where the mantel glowed with photographs of laughter and years. Her whisper stopped me in a way I could not explain. Not just cold. Those 3 words were a question wrapped in a confession. She looked like she had been carrying a weight too heavy for her to lift. Her lips trembled and then she said, "They told me I did not belong here." They told her she did not belong here. The room seemed to spin around me. I had one of those split-second memories of being small and being left at the grocery store by a mother who frantically searched and then returned with apologies. I had sat in a waiting room while men in uniforms clipped numbers off a schedule. I had learned how to be small so that I might be included. I had never expected to meet that smallness again in my grown child. I stood there holding my daughter while the family laughed and the TV played and the fireplace spat its orange teeth. I felt something shift inside me. It was not just anger. It was a slow, cold demand that the world be fair in ways it had not been. I felt the old work ethic rise up, the years of paying dues and standing in lines and wiping tears in the dark. I felt older, yes, but not broken. I opened my mouth to speak. The sound that came out was not a speech. It was a single name, spoken low and hard. That name was not one of the people in the room. It was a name I had kept for myself through long nights. It was the name of the person I would be if the world would not fold for my daughter. At that exact moment the front door banged open and a small child ran in and screamed, "Santa brought my bike." The room erupted into delighted noise. Glasses clinked and a man clapped, and the woman with the perfect smile pushed a plate toward Marceline as if to say, "Here is your place." A place of crumbs. Marceline looked at me with new fear in her eyes. She pushed her hair back and said, "Mom, please." Her voice was small but urgent. I did not know whether she asked me not to cause a scene or begged me to take her away. I had to act. I had to do something that would not let this night end in the same cold it had begun. I wrapped my arms around her, and the room seemed to hold its breath for a second, like a swimmer pausing before diving into deep water. Then the phone on the mantel began to ring. It shrilled with a sound too loud for Christmas. Every head turned at once. The laughter stopped. The hot stillness of a house that keeps secrets slid back into place. I could see the husband reach with a calm he did not mean. Marceline squeezed my hand and looked at me straight in the face. "Mom," she whispered again, "I need you to promise me something." I felt the world tilt around that tiny request. Before I could answer, she opened her mouth to speak the words that would change everything between us and force me to choose who I would be in front of them and in front of myself. She did not finish the sentence. The door swung wide and a tall man stood there wearing a coat still wet with snow. He looked at me, and then at the child on my lap. He smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes, and he said, "You brought your mother for holiday charity." The house breathed again, but not for me. Marceline gasped. I tightened my hold. The room split along an invisible seam. I felt time slow. I felt everyone watching me like I was the story they had been waiting to see. I felt like a coiled thing ready to spring. I swallowed and thought of the cold tile. I thought of the thin robe and the purple lips. I thought of the one small folded envelope in my pocket. I thought of all the years I had held together a life with small stitches. Then Marceline looked at me and mouthed two words that were not sound but truth. "Help me." The man in the doorway clapped his hands once and laughed a little too loudly. The children squealed. The grandmother in the corner fussed with a napkin. Nobody moved toward the kitchen. I had a choice. The room waited. I took a breath and stood up. For a moment, the whole world seemed to freeze around me. The laughter, the fire, the holiday cheer. It all faded into a strange hum in the back of my ears. I stood there holding my trembling daughter as that tall man in the doorway shrugged off his snow-soaked coat and walked deeper into the living room like he owned the air everyone breathed. His name was Orson. I knew it even before anyone spoke it. I had never met him, but I had heard his voice once months ago, on the phone. Marceline had ended the call quickly and told me it was just someone from work. But the tone she used that night had stayed with me. A tone of fear that she tried to swallow. When he stepped further inside, Marceline's grip on me tightened so suddenly that it hurt. That was when I understood. This man was not just someone. He was the reason my daughter had whispered "help me" with a voice that shook like winter branches. The family greeted him with easy warmth. The husband slapped his back like they were childhood friends. The mother brought him a plate as if she had been waiting for him. Orson's eyes swept the room and then fell on me. He gave a slow smile. A practiced one. A smile that said, "I know something you don't." Marceline looked like she wanted to shrink into my coat. I leaned in and whispered, "Baby, look at me." Not at them. At me. What happened? She opened her mouth but no words came. Instead, a tear slipped down her cheek and she shook her head quickly. "Not here. Not now. Not in front of them." I could feel her fear. I could taste it in the air. Something had happened long before Christmas Day. Something that had made her small in her own home, silent in rooms where she should have been safe. Orson strolled toward us and pretended to laugh at something someone said. He picked up a cookie from a tray and bit into it loudly. Then he looked down at my daughter and said, "Well now, you look cozy." I stepped between them so fast he had to stop mid-chew. I did not raise my voice. I did not have to. I just said, she's cold. And she's staying right here with me. He gave a low chuckle and tilted his head like a man amused by a stubborn dog. Then he reached past me and touched Marceline's shoulder. Gently. Too gently. My daughter flinched. It wasn't the kind of flinch people make when startled. It was the kind someone makes when they have been touched in anger one too many times. Something inside me snapped. I took his hand off her shoulder with a grip strong enough to make him blink. The room watched us now. All eyes. No voices. Even the fire popped quieter. I said, "Don't touch her." He wiped his hand on his jeans, still smiling, but the smile cracked just a bit. His eyes sharpened. Cold. Measuring. Her husband finally spoke. He didn't ask if Marceline was okay. He didn't ask why she was on the floor. He simply said, "Mom, you're making a scene." I turned and looked at him. This grown man who vowed to love and protect my daughter. This man who sat warm by a fire while she shivered alone. I said, "Then maybe I'm the first person in this house who should." He rolled his eyes. His mother muttered something about emotional people ruining holidays. A cousin smirked and took a sip of hot chocolate. Their reactions were so casual, so irritated, that I felt something heavy settle in me. This wasn't new. This wasn't one bad day. This family had been treating Marceline like this for a long time. Orson folded his arms and leaned against the wall like he was waiting for the next act of entertainment. I wanted to ask my daughter everything. I wanted the truth. But she was shaking too much to speak. Her breath was shallow. Her eyes darted toward the stairs. I followed her gaze. Upstairs. Something was upstairs. I touched her cheek and asked softly, "Do you need to go somewhere?" Her eyes filled with tears again and she nodded. Just one tap of her head. But it was enough. She whispered, "My room. Please." I helped her to her feet. Her knees almost buckled, so I wrapped my arm tight around her waist. The whole room stared. Not one person stood. Not one person offered help. Not one person asked if she was sick, hurt, hungry, scared. Not one. When we reached the bottom of the staircase, Orson stepped forward again. He planted himself right in front of me and said in a low voice, "She doesn't need your help. She just gets dramatic sometimes." Marceline trembled at his words. I looked him straight in the eyes. "You're going to move. Now." His mouth twitched. He didn't expect me to push back. He was used to having the upper hand. He was used to silence. He was used to winning without raising his voice. But he moved. Not much. Not far. But he moved. As we climbed the stairs, I could hear whispers below us. Laughter. Light sarcasm. A few comments about old ladies being too emotional. But above us, the hallway was quiet. Almost too quiet. We reached the door to her bedroom. The moment I pushed it open, a smell hit me. Not a bad smell. A lonely smell. Cold air, old laundry, and something else. Something like a person who cried themselves to sleep for too many nights. Her window was cracked open. Winter wind leaked in. On purpose? Or accident? I wasn't sure. Her bed was unmade. The sheets thin. A single blanket tossed to the side. Her robe, the one she was wearing, was the only warm piece of clothing she had in sight. My daughter sat on the bed and covered her face. Her shoulders shook. I took the blanket from the floor and draped it over her. Then I sat beside her and told her, "Whatever it is, whatever they've done, you can tell me now." She took a long breath. A painful one. Then she looked at the door as if checking if someone was listening. Finally she whispered, "Mom, I didn't call you just to visit. I called because I didn't know where else to go." My heart tightened. I took her hand. "What happened?" She squeezed my fingers. Hard. "They didn't want me here." I felt my breath catch. "Who?" She swallowed. "All of them." Her voice cracked. Then she whispered the words that made my whole body turn cold. And they said I should leave after Christmas. Because Orson is moving in. My chest burned. What? She looked at me with shame she did not deserve. Mom, they said he needs my room. The air left my lungs. They were going to push my daughter out of her own home. In winter. Before the new year. For a grown man who ate their food and laughed in their living room while she shivered alone in a robe. I stood up too fast. My vision blurred at the edges. I grabbed the edge of the dresser to steady myself. All this time. All this silence. Her pain had been building like a storm. When I looked back at her, she was trembling not from cold but from fear. She whispered, I don't know what to do. I sat beside her again and lifted her chin gently. You are not going anywhere. Do you hear me? Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not until we decide what is best for you. She closed her eyes and let out a shaky breath. Then she whispered, Mom, there's more. I felt the room tilt. More. Before I could ask what she meant, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Slow. Heavy. Coming toward the bedroom door. My daughter's eyes widened. She grabbed my hand and whispered, Please don't let him in. The doorknob twisted. The doorknob turned slowly, like someone was testing whether we would fight back. Marceline's breath hitched. Her hands clutched my sleeve with a grip that felt like childhood fear all over again. I moved in front of her, blocking her from the doorway. The door pushed open an inch. Then another. Then Orson's face appeared in the crack, wearing a smirk that did not belong anywhere near a frightened woman's bedroom. He leaned one shoulder against the frame and said in a soft voice that tried too hard to sound friendly, You two all right up here? I didn't answer. He pushed the door wider without waiting for permission and stepped into the room like he had paid for every nail in the wall. He glanced around at the cold window, the thin sheets, the lonely air, and he didn't look surprised. Not even ashamed. That told me everything. He had been inside this room before. My daughter's fear was not new. He knew exactly why she was shaking. I stepped forward, planting myself between him and Marceline, leaving no space for him to even look at her. Leave, I said. He raised his eyebrows. His voice stayed calm. Almost amused. I just came to check on things. She's been sensitive today. Marceline flinched at that word. Sensitive. The kind of word abusers use to make victims feel foolish. The kind of word meant to silence. Something hot rose up my chest. You don't speak to her anymore, I said. And you don't step into this room again. He tilted his head slowly, studying me like I was suddenly a problem he hadn't planned for. Then he laughed under his breath. You must think you have some kind of authority here. Before I could respond, Marceline whispered behind me, Orson, please go. Her voice was tiny, but it cracked. And something about that crack, something in the way it shattered at the edges, made him turn, annoyed. Sensitive and dramatic, he muttered. I moved closer, close enough that he had no choice but to step back. I didn't yell. I didn't shake. I simply said the truth. Get out. Now. And for one fragile second, he hesitated. Not because he was scared of me, but because he didn't know what I might do. He didn't know if I had reached the point where I would burn the house down to protect my daughter. He smirked once more, then shrugged and stepped back into the hallway. But before he shut the door, he said something low and cruel. Make sure she tells you everything. If she doesn't, I will. The door clicked shut. And my daughter broke. Not loudly. Not with sobs. She just sank onto the bed like her bones gave out. I sat beside her, and she leaned into me like she was sinking into a safe place for the first time in months. I said softly, Tell me. No matter how bad it is. Tell me now. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and whispered, Mom. I think I made a mistake marrying into this family. I took her hand. Warm it. Hold it. Anchor her. She continued, voice trembling, They don't like me. They never did. They say I'm too quiet. Too weak. Too boring. They make jokes about me at dinner. They hide things I need. They laugh at me when I get overwhelmed. She swallowed hard. And she whispered. Orson. He's been staying over more and more. He treats me like I'm invisible. Like I'm in his way. He makes comments when no one else is around. He tells me I should leave if I'm not contributing. My blood ran cold. Where is your husband in all this? I asked. She shook her head slowly. He takes their side, Mom. Always. He tells me I'm imagining things. That I'm too emotional. That I should be grateful they let me stay. Let you stay. Those words made my jaw tighten so hard I felt it in my teeth. Then she whispered, barely audible, and last week, they told me I need to pack my things by New Year's. Because Orson needs a stable place. Stable place. For him. Not for the woman whose name was on the mortgage. I felt the air leave my lungs. I asked quietly, did Orson ever touch you? Did he ever threaten you? She hesitated. Her eyes filled with tears. She looked at the floor. And in that silence, in that one moment where she could not speak the truth out loud, I already knew the answer. I lifted her chin gently. Baby, look at me. Her lips trembled. Then she whispered, barely a breath, I didn't want anyone to know. I swallowed hard. Okay. You don't have to tell me everything tonight. But you need to know this. None of this is your fault. She leaned into me, shaking again. And for a long moment, the only sound was her breathing against my shoulder. Then downstairs, someone called up the stairs. Dinner's ready. Like nothing had happened. Like my daughter wasn't upstairs crying because of months of cruelty. Like she wasn't being pushed out of her own home. I stood up slowly. Marceline whispered, please don't go down there. Please don't argue. They'll say I started things. I placed my hands on her shoulders. Listen to me. They don't get to decide anything today. Do you understand? You are coming home with me tonight. You will not stay here another hour. She looked afraid. Not of leaving, but of their reaction. She said, they'll be angry. Let them be, I said. Let every single one of them be. I went to her closet and opened it. Empty shelves stared back at me. Only a few clothes remained. Many missing. My stomach dropped. They had already started packing her life away. I looked at her. She looked at the floor. Mom, she whispered, they said my things take up too much space. So they boxed them. I don't know where they put the boxes. The coldness I felt in that moment wasn't from the open window. It was from the realization that they had been removing her piece by piece. Her voice shook again. They said I don't use my things enough to deserve a full closet. Deserve. I pressed a hand to my forehead. Deserve. They were measuring her worth in closet space. I said, where are the boxes? She pointed to the attic hatch. And just as she pointed, the attic door creaked. Slowly. Too slowly. Like someone was already up there. Listening. I froze. Marceline whispered, Mom, please tell me that sound wasn't real. But it was. Because something shifted above us. A footstep. Then another. Then a low voice. And the attic latch clicked. I grabbed Marceline's hand. Whoever was up there was coming down. The attic latch shook once. Then twice. Then a slow creak echoed through the whole hallway, like the house itself was warning us. The folding steps began to lower inch by inch. Dust drifted down in soft little clouds. Marceline's breath tightened beside me. I moved in front of her again. The air felt strange. Thick. Heavy. Like the room was holding its own breath. Then a voice floated down from the attic. Low. Calm. And chilling. I was wondering when one of you would come looking. Marceline's fingers dug into my arm. That voice. She whispered. Mom, that's Orson. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Of course it was him. Of course the same man who smirked in her doorway would be the one hiding in the attic of the house. he wasn't supposed to be living in. The stairs dropped fully, and Orson climbed down slowly, one step at a time, carrying a taped-up cardboard box. The kind used when you want to hide someone's life without asking permission. He set the box down gently. Too gently. Like he was performing. Then he dusted off his hands and said, "You didn't have to rush up here. I was just organizing her things. Her things. Her life. In his hands." I stepped between him and my daughter again. "You weren't invited up here. And you weren't asked to touch anything that belongs to her." He grinned. A grin with no warmth at all. A grin that said he wasn't worried about me. A grin that made my stomach twist. "She doesn't need half this stuff," he said. "We're simplifying things." Simplifying. That word tasted like poison. Marceline's voice shook as she stepped forward. "Where are the rest of my boxes?" Orson didn't even look at her. He looked at me. At me. Like she wasn't standing 3 feet away. "Why don't you let her husband explain that?" he said. I took one step toward him. He took one tiny step back. He wasn't brave. Not really. He was only brave when no one stood in front of him. I said, "You're going to bring down every single box. Right now." He raised an eyebrow. "And if I don't?" Before I could answer, someone shouted from downstairs. "Orson. Dinner. Now." He wiped his palms on his jeans, annoyed that his name was being called like a child's. Then he leaned in, too close, lowering his voice to a whisper meant only for me. "You're making this worse for her. You should step aside before you ruin her place here." Her place here. My daughter, my only child, didn't even have a closet anymore. Didn't even have warm clothes. Didn't even have dignity in her own home. And he was talking about her place. I wanted to grab him by his collar and drag him down the stairs myself. But Marceline tugged my sleeve and whispered, "Mom. Please. Let him go." She was shaking. I could feel the fear rolling off her. Orson smirked and stepped past me. But as he did, his shoulder brushed mine intentionally. Hard. A tiny act of defiance. He did not know yet who he was dealing with. When he disappeared down the stairs, I turned to Marceline. "Tell me everything now." She closed her eyes. Trembling. Exhausted. Her voice barely held together. "Mom. He's been staying here more than you know. He comes and goes whenever he wants. He moves things. He hides things. He says I'm in the way." I felt my stomach twist. "How long has this been happening?" "Months," she whispered. "Where is your husband in all of this?" Her lips quivered before she answered. "He says Orson is family. That he needs support. That I shouldn't make things uncomfortable." My hands curled into fists. Make things uncomfortable. My daughter, freezing on her own floor, was the one making things uncomfortable. I asked quietly, "And the attic? Why were your boxes up there? Why didn't you go get them?" She hesitated, then whispered something that chilled me to my bones. "He said I'm not allowed up there. He said it wasn't safe for me." Not allowed. In her own home. Not safe. Because of him. I pressed a hand over my mouth, trying to steady myself, trying not to let her see my anger break open too wide. I sat beside her on the bed. "Baby, why didn't you tell me?" She stared at her blanket. "Because he said I shouldn't worry you. He said you'd overreact. He said you'd make everything worse." I closed my eyes. Of course he said that. Abusers always make mothers sound like enemies. She added, "He said if I complained, he'd tell everyone I was crazy. That they'd believe him. Not me." And had they? Yes. My heart clenched. The weight of her loneliness hit me all at once. We sat there in silence for a moment. The cold from the open window brushed my cheek. I stood up and shut it firmly, locking it. She looked up, startled. "You don't need cold air in this house to remind you of anything anymore," I said. Then I took one of her sweaters from the tiny pile of clothes left in her closet and handed it to her. Put this on. I'm taking you home. Tonight. She hesitated. They'll be angry, she whispered. Let them be angry. You won't be here to hear it. I said it calmly, steadily, with finality. She slipped the sweater on with shaking hands. While she did, I picked up the taped box Orson had brought down from the attic. It rattled. Lightly. Like something small inside. I opened it carefully. Inside were pictures. Her childhood photos. Her graduation cap. A necklace she wore when she was 16. A cookbook she bought when she moved out. An old hoodie of mine that she had asked to keep. He had packed away her memories. Every piece of herself. A lump formed in my throat. I knelt beside her and whispered, "Baby, these aren't things people pack unless they want you gone." And she nodded as tears fell. Before I could say more, the bedroom door suddenly swung open. Her husband stood there. Face tight. Voice cold. "Mom, we need to talk. Now." Marceline flinched. I stood. "Not this time," I said. "We're leaving." He stepped inside, blocking the doorway. "You're not taking her anywhere." The hallway lights flickered behind him. Downstairs, I could hear faint laughter again, as if nothing upstairs mattered. I took one step closer to him. "Watch me." His jaw clenched. He pointed a finger toward me and said, "You're causing problems. You need to calm down before you ruin Christmas." I almost laughed. Ruin Christmas. He said it as if Christmas wasn't already ruined the moment my daughter was forced to shiver on the kitchen floor. I said, "If you touch her, if you threaten her, if you lay one hand on anything she owns again, you will see what real ruin is." He stepped back slightly, startled by the calmness in my voice. Marceline whispered, "Mom." I turned. "It's okay. I'm right here." But then, from downstairs, a loud crash, followed by a child crying, followed by a woman shouting, "Orson, what did you do?" Her husband's face pale, Marceline's eyes wide. Something was happening downstairs. Something big. We all froze as heavy footsteps rushed toward the staircase. And the person running up the stairs was not Orson. It was someone else. Red-faced, breathing hard, and shouting my daughter's name. The footsteps thundered up the staircase fast and heavy, shaking the wooden steps so hard the picture frames on the wall rattled. Marceline clutched my arm. Her husband stepped back, unsure now, eyes wide like he knew something had gone wrong but didn't yet know how bad it truly was. Then the person appeared at the top of the stairs. It was his mother. The woman who had smiled politely at me earlier. The woman who had sat by the fire while my daughter shivered on the kitchen floor. The woman who had pretended not to hear Marceline's trembling voice when she asked for help. But now her face was twisted in panic and fury mixed together. She wasn't calm. She wasn't polite. She wasn't pretending anymore. She pointed directly at my daughter and shouted her name so loud the whole hallway echoed. "Marceline, get down here right now." My daughter flinched. Her husband jumped forward. "Mom, what is it? What happened?" His mother's voice shook with anger. "Orson. He knocked over the table. He scared the children. I told you this would happen. I told you he was unstable tonight. And now he is demanding to see her. He said he won't leave this house until she comes downstairs." Marceline began shaking all over again. Her breathing turned quick and shallow. Her husband looked nervous. Really nervous. Something about the way his mother spoke made his eyes flick toward the stairs like danger was waiting below. I stepped in front of Marceline again. "She's not going anywhere near him." His mother threw an accusing look at me. "This is your fault. You came in here with your attitude and made everything worse. Orson was fine until you started stirring things up." I felt the anger rise hot in my chest. Stirring things up. That was what she called protecting my child. I said, "Orson has been a problem long before today. And you know it. She stiffened. Her lips tightened. She knew I was telling the truth. Behind us, Marceline whispered, "Mom, I don't want to see him. Please. Don't let them make me." I placed my hand gently on hers. "You won't." But her husband's face hardened again. "You're not the one making decisions here. She lives with us. And if Orson wants to talk this out." I stepped forward so fast he stumbled back. "If he comes near her, I will drag her out of this house right now and call the police from the driveway." Silence. Thick. Cold. Real. His mother exhaled sharply, irritated but uncertain. Then downstairs. A chair scraped. A glass shattered. And Orson's voice roared through the entire house. "Where is she?" My blood went ice cold. Not a question. A demand. Followed by the thump of something heavy being kicked over. Children crying. A panicked voice yelling, "Someone calm him down." Her husband's face drained of color. His mother pressed a hand over her mouth in shock. This wasn't a man who wanted a calm conversation. This was someone losing control. I grabbed Marceline's hand. "We're leaving. Right now." She hesitated. Fear locked her feet as if her bones refused to move. But I squeezed her hand tight, tight enough for her to feel my strength, and whispered, "Baby, we don't stay where we are not safe." Her husband blocked the hallway. "You can't just walk out. Not like this. Not during Christmas dinner." I stared at him. "Christmas is the last thing you should be worried about." Then the house shook again as something slammed downstairs. Marceline whimpered. Her husband looked toward the stairs, torn between fear and pride. His mother whispered, "Maybe she should go talk to him. Calm him down before he breaks something else." Marceline's body stiffened. My voice dropped low and sharp. "She will not go near him." Her husband raised his voice. "She lives here. She has responsibilities here." I turned so slowly that my movement felt heavy with years of unspoken exhaustion. Responsibilities. You mean being silent, being stepped over, being bullied, being cold, being erased. He clenched his jaw. "You're making a big deal out of nothing." A roar shook the house. Nothing. That was Orson. Everyone froze. Then footsteps, heavy, angry steps, pounded toward the staircase. His mother gasped. "Oh God. He's coming up." My heart thudded hard in my chest. I pulled Marceline behind me. Her husband took one step forward, as if he might defend Orson, or defend us. I couldn't tell which one he was loyal to anymore. The footsteps got closer. Faster. He was coming. And he wasn't calm. I whispered to Marceline, "Stay behind me and do not move." The first shadow hit the top of the stairs. A tall shape. Broad shoulders. Ragged breathing. Then Orson appeared. His eyes weren't wild. They were cold. Focused. Directly on my daughter. He pointed at her like she was property. "Come here." No one moved. Marceline shrank behind me. I felt her shaking. Orson stepped onto the landing, voice low and cutting. "You think you can hide behind her? You think she's going to save you from me?" I stepped forward. "She doesn't need saving from you. She needs saving from what you've made her become." Everyone else shrank back. He stared at me with a look I had only ever seen in dangerous people who have never been told no. Then he said, "Move. She and I have something to settle." Marceline whimpered, "Please no." My heart cracked at the sound. I straightened my spine. I didn't yell. I didn't shake. I didn't flinch. I said, "She's not going anywhere with you. Not now. Not ever again." He stepped forward. Her husband didn't move. His mother didn't move. No one protected her. No one but me. Orson leaned close enough for me to feel his breath. "Move. Before you regret it." I stared right back into his eyes. "Try me." For the first time, His smirk flickered. He didn't expect resistance. He didn't expect a mother who had nothing left to lose. He took another step. And that was when I saw it. A bruise. Faint. Yellowed. Half hidden under Marceline's sweater sleeve as she tried to pull it down. My vision blurred with rage. You touched her. He froze. Didn't smile. Didn't deny it. Didn't admit it. Just silence. Heavy, guilty silence. Behind me, Marceline began to cry softly. The kind of cry that breaks a mother in half. I turned back to him. And my voice came out quiet. Too quiet. You touched her. He swallowed. My daughter whispered, Mom. Please. I whispered back. You don't have to hide anymore. Her husband muttered under his breath. This is getting blown out of proportion. I cut him off. You knew. He didn't answer. His silence told everything. Then Orson lunged. Fast. Straight toward my daughter. And I moved faster. I grabbed him by the arm and shoved him back with a strength I didn't know I still had. He staggered, shocked, slamming into the wall. His mother screamed. Her husband shouted. Marceline grabbed me, terrified. Orson wiped his mouth like he was surprised I touched him. His voice dropped low. You're going to regret that. I stepped in front of my daughter entirely. Take one more step, I said, and this whole house will know exactly who you really are. He glared at me, breathing hard, chest rising and falling. Then, suddenly, he smiled. Not a kind smile. A dangerous one. Fine, he said. Tell them. The hallway fell silent. Not one word moved. He looked at the family behind him. Go on. Tell them what she told you. Tell them all the little stories. Let's see who they believe. His confidence was sickening. Because he was right. They would protect him. Not her. He took another step forward, lifting his chin. Tell them, he said again, voice cold. I looked at Marceline. Her face pale. Her eyes broken. Her body shaking. And I realized something. She didn't need me to argue. She didn't need me to scream. She didn't need me to prove anything to anyone in that house. She needed one thing. Freedom. I took a breath. Let the room settle. Let the tension hold just long enough. Then I said the words that changed everything. We're leaving. Right now. Orson blinked. Her husband stiffened. His mother gasped. Marceline whispered, Mom. I squeezed her hand tight. Pack nothing. Leave everything. Just walk. She stared at me. Then nodded. A small, terrified nod. But enough. We took one step toward the stairs. Orson moved to block us. But someone grabbed his arm. Hard. Stopping him cold. Everyone turned. It was the youngest cousin. The quiet one. Eyes wide. Hands shaking. And he said one sentence that froze the entire hallway. I saw what you did to her. Orson's eyes widened. The family gasped. The hallway went silent. Not quiet. Silent. Like the house had suddenly stopped breathing. The youngest cousin, a boy no older than 13, stood there with his hand still gripping Orson's arm. His fingers shook, but he didn't let go. Everyone stared at him as if they had never seen him before. Even Orson looked stunned, like the ground beneath him had cracked in a way he didn't expect. The cousin swallowed hard and repeated, louder this time. I saw what you did to her. My daughter's breath caught. Her husband froze. His mother covered her mouth like she had seen a ghost. Orson's eyes sharpened. He jerked his arm out of the boy's grasp so violently the child stumbled back. You don't know what you saw, he snapped. But the boy stood firm. His chest rose and fell fast, but he didn't look away. Yes, I do. A tremble ran through my daughter's fingers. I held her tighter. Her husband stepped forward, voice shaking. What is he talking about? What did he see? The boy's voice cracked as he answered. He was hurting her. In the kitchen. Last week. I heard her telling him to stop. My heart dropped. Marceline pressed a hand to her mouth, choking on a sound that wasn't quite a sob and wasn't quite a breath. Her husband looked at Orson, confused and pale. What is he talking about? Orson scoffed. A kid misheard something and now you're all ready to accuse me. But the boy cut him off, voice stronger this time. I didn't mishear anything. She said stop. You kept talking mean to her. You pushed her. And she hit the counter. I saw it. That did it. The truth was now alive in the hallway. Her husband's face twisted like he didn't know whether to defend Orson or face the truth he had ignored for months. His mother stood rigid, eyes darting between the boy and Orson like her world was collapsing in slow motion. My daughter whispered, "Oh God." I turned to her, brushing a tear from her cheek. You're not alone anymore, baby. Not one more day. Then I faced the boy. Thank you, I said. His lip trembled, but he nodded. Orson's jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumped in his cheek. He pointed at the boy, eyes burning with fury. You're lying. The cousin shook his head. I'm not. Orson took a threatening step forward. And I stepped between them instantly. Don't take another step. His eyes met mine. Cold. Angry. Unpredictable. Behind him, the husband whispered, "Is this true? Did you put your hands on her?" Orson didn't answer. And sometimes, not answering is the loudest confession. That's all I needed. I turned to Marceline. We're leaving now. No more talking. No more explaining. No more waiting. She nodded through tears. Her husband finally snapped out of his shock. Wait. Wait. Nobody is going anywhere until we figure this out. There's nothing left to figure out, I said. You let her suffer in this house. You saw the signs and ignored them. He looked wounded, offended even. She never told me. She didn't feel safe telling you, I interrupted. That's all you need to know. His mother tried to regain control. Everyone calm down. It's Christmas. We'll sort this out in the morning. I turned fully toward her. You had months of mornings. Months of nights. Months of chances to help her. You didn't. We are done here. Marceline's shoulders shook as she watched her family crumble in front of her, every truth finally dragging itself out of the dark corners of this house. Orson stepped forward suddenly, eyes blazing. She's not leaving. She belongs here. She doesn't get to run away from her problems. She belongs nowhere near you, I said, my voice low. He glared at me with the kind of look dangerous men give when they realize they're losing control. Then he said something I will never forget. She has nowhere else to go. You can't afford to take care of her. The words hit like a slap. They weren't just cruel. They were calculated. Aimed to shame my daughter. Aimed to wound me. Aimed to make everyone believe he was the only one capable of giving her stability. Marceline gasped and stepped back like the words had struck her physically. I stood tall. You don't get to decide where she belongs. You don't get to measure her worth. You don't get to break her and then tell her she's lucky to have you. Orson's nostrils flared. His hands curled into fists. I stared into his face and said, my daughter will always have somewhere to go. She will always have me. And she will always have a home where she is safe. Something you could never give her. He lunged again, but her husband finally stepped between us. No. Orson. Stop. The mother shouted, Orson. Enough. For the first time that night, Orson hesitated. Seeing his shield, my daughter's husband, take a step away from him rattled him in a way nothing else had. He turned toward the children crying downstairs. Toward the broken dishes. Toward the family that had once excused his behavior. Now watching him with fear. Not loyalty. Fear. He backed up one step. Then another. He looked at Marceline with pure venom. This isn't over. I stepped forward, blocking his view of her entirely. Yes, it is. He glared at me with hatred burning in his eyes, and for a second I thought he might strike out again. But her husband raised a hand as a warning. Back off, Orson. Orson's jaw flexed. He took one more step back. Then he turned. And he stormed down the stairs. The house fell silent. For the first time that night, no one laughed. No one smiled. No one pretended. Marceline sagged against the wall, legs too weak to hold her. I held her up, whispering, "It's okay. It's over. You're safe now." Her husband ran a hand over his face, overwhelmed. "I can't believe this." I turned to him. "Believe it. Because she lived it." His mother looked lost, her voice small. "But Orson is family. He's been with us for years," I said, "and look what that cost her." Marceline began crying softly. I wrapped my arms around her and held her like I did when she was 5 and afraid of thunder. We stayed like that for a long moment. Then I said what needed to be said. "Get your shoes, baby. We are leaving." She nodded against my shoulder. Her husband tried to speak. "Wait. Can't we talk?" "No," I said firmly. "Not tonight. Not again. She needs peace. Not explanations." He swallowed hard, defeated. I didn't know it was this bad. And that was the truth. But it wasn't an excuse. I looked him in the eye. "You didn't want to know." He looked away. Marceline wiped her tears. "Mom, what about my things?" "Leave them," I said. "We will make new memories. We will buy new clothes. We will start fresh. Nothing in this house is worth taking." We walked toward the stairway. Each step felt like reclaiming something she lost. Her dignity, her safety, her freedom. But when we reached the bottom of the stairs, the front door slammed. Hard. Too hard. We froze. Marceline's husband whispered, "That's Orson leaving, right?" But I knew. I knew from the heaviness of the sound, from the vibration in the floor, from the look in Marceline's eyes. That wasn't someone leaving. That was someone waiting. And as we reached the entryway, we saw it. Orson wasn't gone. He was standing outside, in the snow, facing the house, still, watching, waiting, for us to step outside. The snow outside the front window glowed under the porch lights, soft and white, the kind of snow that should have made the world feel peaceful. But nothing about the moment was peaceful. Not with Orson standing there, still, silent, facing the door like a shadow waiting to swallow anything that stepped outside. Marceline froze on the last step. Her hand tightened around the railing until her knuckles turned pale. Her breath came out in a shaky whisper. "Mom, he's waiting for us." I put an arm in front of her, blocking her from stepping forward. Her husband moved behind us, now finally waking up to the danger he had allowed into their home. He peered through the curtains and swallowed hard. "He's not leaving," he whispered. His mother walked down from the dining room, hands trembling, as if she had only now realized the consequences of everything she allowed. Children huddled behind her, crying softly. Downstairs felt colder than the attic upstairs. A family that once defended him, now quietly feared him. I walked up to the front window and looked out. Orson stood in the snow, chest rising and falling in sharp, angry breaths. The porch light carved harsh lines across his face. His coat hung open, wet snow gathering on his shoulders. His boots were planted firmly like he had decided we weren't leaving without answering to him. He held something in his hand. A box. One of my daughter's boxes he had carried from the attic. He knew what he was doing. He was sending a message. "Everything she owns is in my hands." He lifted the box just slightly, as if reminding us he controlled more than we thought. Marceline's whisper cracked behind me. "Mom, please don't go out there." I turned to her, brushing her tear-wet cheek. "I won't." Her husband stepped forward, voice trembling. Maybe I should talk to him. Maybe I can make him leave. I didn't even turn around. No. You won't talk to him. He doesn't respect you. He doesn't fear you. And he won't listen to you. His mother wrung her hands, voice shaking. Should we call someone? Maybe the police, or someone from the church. Someone who can calm him. I looked back at her. You should have called someone a long time ago. But tonight, I wasn't going to rely on a family who had ignored every red flag for months. Marceline pressed her forehead to my shoulder. Mom, what do we do? I took her hands gently. You won't face him. You won't speak to him. And you won't step outside. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. But how do we leave? We don't go through him, I said. We go around him. Her husband blinked. What does that mean? I pointed to the back of the house. There's a second exit. Through the mudroom. It leads to the garage. He looked confused. But my car is in the driveway. Mine's not, I said. I parked down the street. Marceline looked at me in disbelief. Mom, you planned an escape route. I smoothed her hair back. Baby, I've been a mother for 30 years. I always plan a way out. A faint, weak smile flickered on her lips. Then we heard it. A sudden crash at the front door. We all jumped. Orson had kicked the bottom panel. Hard. The children cried louder. His mother grabbed them, pulling them back from the entryway. Marceline's hands trembled so violently I could feel the vibrations through my coat sleeves. I stepped forward, raising my voice in a steady tone. Stay back, all of you. Her husband nodded, breathing fast. My God. He's really losing it. He wasn't losing it. He had already lost everything the moment the truth came out. And now, he wanted control back. He slammed the door again. Then again. The wood shuddered each time. I turned to Marceline. Look at me. She lifted her tear-streaked face. We are leaving. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Tonight. We are walking out of this house. And you are not coming back. She nodded. A small, terrified nod. And then I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I took her face in both my hands and said, You're safe with me. Always. Do you hear me? She nodded again. But her voice shook as she whispered, Mom, what if he follows us? I pressed my forehead to hers. Then let him try. He won't win tonight. Her husband finally spoke. I'll distract him at the front door. You two go out the back. Just be careful. I studied him for a moment. Truly studied him. He looked shaken. Guilty. Ashamed. But maybe, just maybe, ready to finally do something right. I nodded once. Marceline's breath trembled. Then I said, quietly now, grab your shoes. We moved down the hallway fast and silent. Her steps were wobbly, but she walked. Every movement she made felt like she was reclaiming a piece of herself. As we passed the family photos lining the walls, I felt something inside me harden. She had given these people years of her life. Her loyalty. Her trust. And they had given her nothing but fear. Not anymore. When we reached the mudroom, I grabbed her coat from the hook. A thin one. I draped my own over her shoulders instead. Then I reached up to the shelf and grabbed the emergency flashlight. The one her in-laws kept for power outages. Tonight, the outage wasn't electricity. It was morality. We stepped into the garage. The cold air rushed in through the window, numbing our fingers instantly. Snow blew in from the side door, piling up along the edges of the concrete floor. Marceline looked toward the house, eyes scared. Mom, what if he hears the back door? He won't, I said. Not with all the yelling he's doing at the front. Her husband's shouting grew louder. Stop, Orson. Stop kicking the door. Just talk to me, man. More pounding. More yelling. A perfect distraction. I took Marceline's hand and guided her through the cracked open garage door. Cold night air hit our faces. Snow crunched under our boots. Her breath came out fast. Mine came out steady. But then, as soon as we stepped out onto the driveway, a voice cut through the night. Low. Cold. Behind us. Going somewhere. We stopped dead. My stomach sank. Slowly. Slowly. We turned around. Orson wasn't at the front door anymore. He wasn't pounding. He wasn't yelling. He had slipped out the side porch. He had circled the house. He had been waiting in the dark. His face was lit only by the snowlight. And in his hand, he still held the box of my daughter's memories. Marceline squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. Orson took one step forward. Then another. You think you're just walking away from this? You think you're taking her from me? I stepped in front of her. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shake. I didn't fear him. I said, she doesn't belong to you. She never did. His jaw tightened. His breath puffed into the cold air like smoke. Then he said something that made time freeze. If she leaves this house tonight, everything in this box is gone. He lifted it slightly. Threatening. Holding her memories hostage. Marceline's breath broke. Mom, my pictures, my necklace. I took her hand and whispered, baby, we don't need anything that comes with fear. But she shook her head desperately. Mom, those are pieces of my life. Orson smirked. Then he loosened his grip on the box. Just enough to show he could drop it. Into the snow. Into the mud. Into destruction. Choose, he said. Leave. Or stay for your things. I stared at him. At the box. At the snow. At my daughter. And in that moment, I made a decision so sharp it cut the night in half. I took one step forward. Then one more. And I said, you're right. She does need her things. Orson smiled in victory. But I wasn't finished. I reached for the box. Slowly. Carefully. And just when his fingers loosened, I yanked it out of his hand with a force he didn't expect. The box flew from his grip. He gasped. Then I threw it. Hard. Straight into the snow behind me. It hit the yard and burst open. Papers, photos, fabric scattering across the white ground. My daughter cried out softly, but not in pain. In shock. In release. I said, those things don't own her. And you don't either. Orson took a step back, stunned, furious. And in that split second, when he was off balance, I grabbed my daughter's hand. Run. We ran. Through the snow. Down the street. Toward my car. Toward safety. Toward freedom. But behind us, I heard him. Heavy boots pounding through the snow. Coming after us. Faster. Closer. Determined. Snow whipped against our faces as we ran down the quiet street. Christmas lights blinked on fences and rooftops, but the night felt nothing like Christmas. Not with Orson's footsteps pounding behind us. Not with his breath cutting through the cold like a warning. Not with my daughter's hand trembling inside mine. Marceline stumbled once, the snow too thick for her thin shoes, but I pulled her up before she fell. Keep going, baby. Don't stop. Her breathing hitched. Mom. He's close. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel him behind us. Heavy. Angry. Desperate. A man who had lost control inside the house and refused to lose outside of it. Streetlights glowed ahead of us like distant beacons. My car sat parked beneath one of them, dark and cold but waiting. I squeezed her hand tighter. Almost there, I whispered. But Orson growled from behind us, his voice echoing across the snow. You're not running from me. Marceline whimpered. Tears froze on her cheeks. We turned the final corner. And Orson lunged. His hand caught the back of my coat, yanking me backward. I lost my balance for a second. The snow beneath me shifted. But before I could fall, Marceline grabbed my arm and pulled me forward with a strength she didn't know she still had. "Let her go," she cried, her voice breaking. Orson's boots scraped against the pavement. He recovered his balance quickly and came at us again. This was it. I stepped in front of my daughter, planting myself between her and that man like a wall she could hide behind. Orson's chest heaved. His eyes were wild now, not cold like before, but burning with the kind of fury men feel when someone takes away the power they thought they owned. "Move," he snarled. "No. Move. No." He rushed forward, hand raised as if he might shove me to the ground. But then, headlights washed over us. Bright. Blinding. A car was turning onto the street. Orson froze as the light illuminated the scene, me shielding my daughter, her shaking uncontrollably, him mid-step like a predator caught in daylight. The car slowed, then stopped. A figure stepped out. And for a brief moment, the whole world went still. It was a neighbor. A woman in a heavy coat. One of those night watch neighbors who pay attention. Her face was stern. Sharp. Awake. "Everything all right out here?" she asked, voice steady. Orson lowered his hand quickly. His breath fogged the air in frantic bursts. He forced a laugh that sounded wrong. "We're fine. Family disagreement. Nothing more." The neighbor's eyes narrowed. She looked from him, to my daughter, to me. "No," she said calmly. "It doesn't look fine." She stepped fully between us, standing at our side like a shield. Not family, but someone who understood danger when she saw it. Marceline's grip tightened on my sleeve. "Mom." I leaned close. "It's okay now." Orson stepped forward again, jaw clenched. He tried to look confident, like a man in control, but guilt was written all over him. "You don't know what you're talking about. This is none of your business." The neighbor folded her arms. "A young woman crying in the snow while you chase her is exactly my business." He blinked. His breaths came faster. She lifted her chin. "I already called the police when I saw you running after them. They're on their way." With those words, Orson stepped back. Not in fear. In calculation. He looked at us one last time, something twisted and poisonous flickering behind his eyes. "This isn't over," he said. But I didn't respond. And neither did the neighbor. Because we all knew something he didn't. It was over. We had witnesses now. We had truth now. We had escape now. Then, before the flashing lights appeared at the end of the street, Orson backed into the darkness, turned sharply, and vanished between two houses like a cornered animal fading into the woods. Marceline collapsed into my arms. Not from pain. Not from exhaustion. From relief. Her whole body melted into mine as sobs shook her shoulders. I held her. Held her like I did decades ago when storms rattled our windows and she crawled into my bed with her teddy bear. "You're safe," I whispered into her hair. "You're safe now. He will never hurt you again." The neighbor guided us gently toward my car. I opened the passenger door for my daughter, wrapped my coat around her again, and buckled her in. Before I closed the door, she touched my hand. "Mom. Thank you, for coming for me." I brushed a tear from her cheek. "Baby, there is no storm I wouldn't walk through for you." She nodded slowly. Her breathing evened. And for the first time that night, her eyes didn't look afraid. They looked free. I shut the door gently and turned to the neighbor. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "Take care of your girl." I promised her that I would. I walked around to the driver's side, got in, and started the engine. Warm air began to blow through the vents. Then I looked over at Marceline. She was staring out the window, watching the snow fall lightly onto the street. Her face was soft. Quiet. Not broken. Not anymore. Just tired. I touched her hand. "We're going home," I said. Home. A place where laughter wasn't used as a weapon. A place where she would sleep without fear. A place where she would rebuild herself piece by piece. We drove away from that house without looking back. Because sometimes a mother doesn't just rescue her child. She rescues the woman her child had forgotten she was. She rescues the life her child almost lost. She rescues the future her child didn't believe she deserved. As we reached the highway, Marceline whispered one more thing. Mom, I promise. I'll never let myself go through something like that again. I smiled softly, squeezing her hand. Good. Because the days of being small in someone else's house are over. The rest of the ride was silent, peaceful, full of new beginnings. And so the story ends not with revenge, but with freedom. Not with bitterness, but with strength. Not with the past, but with a new chapter waiting to be written. Viewers, if you felt this story tonight, if it touched your heart, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you never miss powerful stories like this again. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support helps us keep these stories alive. Thank you for listening.